All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another edition of Facebook Live with We Ain't Got No History. I'm your host, David, who always forgets to mute the tab of the Facebook thing, so I hear myself back on a 10-second delay, which is highly off-putting. Anyway, this is We Ain't Got No History's Facebook Live week 3-ish edition, plus the preseason loss to Bayern Munich 3-2 edition. Didn't do this earlier today just because the timing of the game was pretty weird. Midday on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, depending on your time. I suppose it was Tuesday for everybody, but here we are. We're going to talk a little bit about the game itself, and then about the transfer news that seemingly has dried up a bit here in the last few days, ever since Alvaro Morata's arrival. So there's plenty of plans that the club seems to be disseminating through the usual channels about 3 or 4 more signings, but it's unclear really what's happening there, if anything. So we'll talk about all that, and we'll talk about the game, depending on which one's more interesting, I suppose. So we're going to start with the game, just to get that out of the way. Oh, we have a local report here. I was at the stadium, and our players don't even spend time for their fans and just walk off like they didn't see anybody. Sometimes that happens. I don't know. It just depends on the setup. I've been to several preseason games where they've certainly made plenty of time to interact with the fans. So I don't know. It's perhaps it depends. Maybe they're just upset that they lost. Who knows? But that is unfortunate if the local crowd went out to see their heroes, and they decided not to even chat with them. Well, moving on from that, I suppose, for a minute. 3-2 was the final result. I think it's fair to say this was our worst preseason performance. Obviously, we've only ever seen one other game, and then heard reports of an 8-2 win over Fulham. The pattern of the game and even the final result was highly reminiscent of last season's 3-2 loss to Real Madrid. In that game, Chelsea also went behind by 3-0, then came back and made it exciting at the end, 3-2. So the season after that preseason turned out all right. So we don't have to read too much into the actual result. What we should read into is the very poor play for the first 30 minutes from Chelsea, and then what Conte also highlighted was the improvement over the last 60 minutes or so. Granted, given how badly Chelsea started the game, the only way was up. Although as we saw with Arsenal over the weekend, sometimes when the other team goes up by 3-0, you just kind of stop playing and give up. And that's certainly something that we cannot accuse Chelsea of doing. That's the positive that Conte highlighted, and I think that's the positive that we should be taking away from the game as well. We never good fight, good commitment, all that stuff after the first 30 minutes. First 30 minutes, yeah. Not so much. Chelsea looked flat, not really able to cope with anything that Bayern was throwing at them. There were massive gaps all over the place. Conte often talks about compactness, and we didn't see much of that at all. There were huge gaps between defense and midfield. We seemed to be pressing up with the midfielders, and then the defenders weren't following, so there was definitely some sort of disconnect there. I don't know if we can really blame Christensen, who was the one change to the usual defensive setup. but he certainly seemed to not necessarily be on the same page with Cahill, and especially on the third goal, I think it was, when they both just decided to back up and back off and back off some more until Muller took his goal well. It was a nice shot still, and maybe Courtois saves it on the day, but you can't just let the opposition player run unabated from the halfway line until about 30 yards out and then just unleash an uncontested shot. So those are things that they need to work on. Whether Christensen plays right now, based on that performance, he's not going to unseat David Luiz anytime soon. But going for the season ahead, we cannot just rely on the same players like last season. I think that much is clear, and we've made that clear throughout reports and all sorts of interviews and everything else. We'll see how Rudiger slots in. I believe he's now rejoined the team from his other preseason commitments with Germany and Nike. So we'll see how he fits into the system and the picture. Obviously Cahill, Luiz, and Azpilicueta have a full season playing together, playing almost every minute of every game together. So they will be operating at a better understanding and a better level of efficiency than any other setup. So we have about 2.5 weeks to figure out and develop other relationships and other partnerships in various areas of the pitch, so that when we do rotate the team or we do bring in some other players, they aren't all over the place. Roy says, I was at the game. Christensen did well. We just were outmuscled in midfield. Muller was pressuring Cesc all the time, and Sanchez bossed it. Yeah, certainly young Renato Sanchez, who supposedly had a really bad season last year for Bayern, was showing no signs of being bad or having a bad season. He was pretty impressive. And Muller, especially when he was playing off of Lewandowski, the striker, there's some really good movement from the Bayern striker, and Muller always found dangerous space off that. Once Ancelotti took off the striker, Muller was a lot less dangerous. So he's definitely he's not a single center forward or anything like that, but as somebody to play off of a single striker, he's really good, and he certainly taught us a lesson or two. We certainly can't have those midfield turnovers from Fabregas and whoever else was giving the ball away, especially with everybody pushing ahead for the ball. So often, I think it was the second goal and even the first goal was, everybody barred the center, the back three were ahead of the ball. So when the ball turns over, Bayern pour forward and you're left scrambling, and that's not an ideal situation. And I think Conte, that was the major thing he corrected. If not at that first water break, it was what he corrected at halftime. And after that, it was much more the normal, usual Chelsea that we've seen all of last season, or most of last season. So, again, it's cliche to use. It's a learning experience and it's a reality check and all that stuff. But sometimes you do need it, and sometimes you learn best from failing, right? As another cliche goes. Anyway, so let's quickly run through the lineups for Chelsea. Was the usual. The strongest 11 that we could assemble, except for Andreas Christensen at David Luiz's position in the middle of the back three. So it's Courtois in goal, Cahill, Christensen, and Azpilicueta across the back. Marcos Alonso and Victor Moses, the wingbacks. Marcos Alonso has certainly ran himself into the ground to mixed reviews. Fabregas and Conte in the middle. And then the front three of Jeremy Boga, Michy Batshuayi, and Willian. Unlike over the weekend when Conte eventually substituted every single player, This time, 5 players finished the game, and that was Cahill, Azpilicueta in defense, Willian up front, Moses as right wing back, and then later left wing back, and then Conte in the middle. The big changes that really in the second half, about an hour mark, we brought on David Luiz for Christensen, and Alvaro Morata made his Chelsea debut, preseason debut, so it's not really an official debut yet. We'll have that later. He came on for Jeremy Boga, and then about the 15 minutes to go, Eduardo made a rare appearance. Eduardo is the third goalkeeper. For those not familiar, he's often just seen in training. He came on for the final 15 minutes, and young Fikayo Tomori came on for Marcos Alonso, who, as I mentioned earlier, really ran himself into the ground and was clearly very tired, even as Conte was urging him to carry on. So Tomori came on and played right wing back as he's done all preseason, and Victor Moses switched to left wing back, again to mixed reviews, to be generous, although he was involved in one of the goals, and actually Moses was involved in both goals that Chelsea scored today or yesterday, and he was involved in as a left wing back even. And then the final set of changes with about 5 minutes to go, which really was just token nonsense. Lewis Baker came on for Michy Batshuayi, and Mario Pasalic came on for Cesc Fabregas. If we're counting the players who did not play, and thus are probably, at the bottom of the, I don't know, or first to leave, first to be loaned out, probably was Jake Clark-Salter, Loic Remy, Kyle Scott, and Thomas Kallas, who did not play. Kallas is linked with a loan to Fulham again, so that might happen. Remy is linked with a permanent move somewhere else. Haven't heard much about Kyle Scott moving anywhere, and Clark-Salter probably will go out on loan. As we know, Kennedy, de facto left wing back, has been sent back to London after his, shall we say, ill-advised Instagram postings while the team was in China. Certainly, there's interpretations are differing as to whether he truly meant, or what he meant was really offensive or racist even, or whatever. But the point is that they were taken as offensive comments, and really this is the expected move from Chelsea to basically send him back to London, and I'd expect him to be loaned out, and eventually all of this swept under the carpet and forgotten. Although there are some reports that, or some expectations that he might just be cut from the team, which would be a pretty unfortunate end for him, considering that he surprised us all a couple of years ago when he made the team under Mourinho. So it is unfortunate, although he never quite moved on from that initial impressive performance. I think it was against Barcelona when he shut down Suarez and all that. So that's all we know about Kennedy's situation for now. Yeah, a couple of questions about Morata. I think probably the most interesting part of the game was when Morata came on for the last 30 minutes, and instead of being a straight swap for Batshuayi, he came on for Jeremy Boga, and Chelsea kind of stayed in a 3-4-3, but then it was a highly lopsided 3-4-3, and then Conte was seen gesturing at Morata, I believe, to get him moving up a little further forward. And while Alonso was still on the pitch, it was basically a 3-5-2 with Morata and Batshuayi up top, Alonso as sort of a left winger, and then Willian as a right winger in possession. And then out of possession, Morata kind of drifted to the left wing to track back, sort of kind of. Batshuayi stayed in the middle and up top. So that was an interesting wrinkle, and it certainly paid off for Chelsea's second goal, which basically the two big men created on their own from a Fabregas corner, where Morata flicked it on at the front post and found Batshuayi unmarked in the middle of the 6-yard box. So maybe there's a glimpse of, if not the future, at least a future possibility or another tactical aspect that we can work on. I think we've said from the beginning that Batshuayi works the best in a two-striker setup, and we've been waiting all last season to see him work together with Costa, which only happened on a rare occasion, usually mostly at the beginning of the season, and rarely after that. So maybe, with Batshuayi having a really good preseason so far, he scored his 5th goal in 3 games. And even though there are some, stray rumors of Llorente again or whoever, Benteke maybe, it'd be nice to see Batshuayi stick around. And if he can continue this goal-scoring form alongside Morata, or with the two of them rotating in a 3-4-3 or playing off of each other in a 3-5-2, it's having more than one tactical plan is never a bad thing. Certainly, yesterday in the first 30 minutes, Bayern looked like they were more than ready for whatever Chelsea were planning on doing. I think a lot of that had to do with Bayern coming off of a 4-0 defeat. That's 4-0 defeat to AC Milan. So I think they were much more motivated, or possibly much more up for this game than Chelsea were. And that really showed in the first 30 minutes. But possibly some of that also had to do with, Ancelotti knowing what Chelsea were going to do. And, I'm not really sure there's that much preparation that goes into preseason games in terms of tactics. But, a couple comments or a couple quick, tactical preparation could go a long way, and they seem ready. They seem ready for all of Chelsea's usual avenues of attack and shut it down. So, having a plan that moves beyond the 3-4-3 that we can readily switch to is certainly something that would be good. Last season we did that a lot with Fabregas coming on. But in the end, that was almost an expected move as well. So now, presuming that our starting midfielders will be Conte and Bakayoko, and we have the Fabregas option off the bench, and then we have the second striker option off the bench. So adding versatility to the squad is certainly a good way to tackle a season that has more fixture congestion, more important games, stuff like that. Terry says Dave Luiz was missed during the first half against Bayern. Do you believe Conte will alternate with 3 and 4 at the back? Teams caught on at the tail end of the season. Yeah, I'm not sure we will alternate the defensive setup. I haven't really seen any suggestion of us doing that. But yeah, I would definitely agree that Luiz was missed against Bayern. It was funny to see him come on and basically, within like 5 minutes, he was stepping up and winning the ball, marauding forward with the ball, which possibly isn't his game really anymore. Last season, his main role was to cover the other two guys in defense. But that proactive play is something that Christensen wasn't doing at all. And I don't know if he's just, it was just his first game, really, his first big involvement for Chelsea, so maybe he wasn't comfortable or whatever. From what we've seen in Germany when he was on loan, he is able to play that more proactive role. So, maybe it's just growing pains, but certainly after Luis came on, the whole impetus of the team changed, and that's just something that Luis can do. So it's something to watch for, and something for Christensen to grow into, if he is to be his understudy. I think See, it's easy to overreact to a loss, and it's easier to overreact to a poor performance. Certainly, plenty of people have been doing that with Victor Moses, who not a left wing back. um, so many people were doing with Alonso. He was not having necessarily a good game. His side was repeatedly exposed. That's for certain. And if you're watching the telecast, the commentator, whoever was commentating on the world feed, had it in for Alonso and Chelsea in general. So that was not cool. But like the first goal, we can't really put that down to Alonso. It was, the whole left side was vacated by Boga, and nobody was closing down the shooter. And also, nobody really expected Rafinha to take that shot, including Courtois, who's moving in the other direction and wasn't set, and so he couldn't save it. It's just one of those shots. Is Alonso worth the 7 million FPL? I don't know what that means. Oh, it's the fantasy thing. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how that compares to other left backs. One thing that we possibly could watch for is right now. Is my camera off? No, I think my camera's on. At least I see myself. But on Alonso, now that we have Morata and possibly Batshuayi, I think we will see a lot more high crosses as well. Well, maybe not a lot more, but certainly more crosses into the box with hopefully Morata and Batshuayi getting on the ends of them. And Alonso did score a goal, which was a really nice goal. Obviously, it won't make up for any perceived errors, but it was a nice goal. And he certainly ran he ran his little heart out. I don't think we can fault him for that. Charlie Musonda, any news? I haven't heard. I'm presuming he is still injured, which is highly, highly unfortunate. Oh, there's French. I can't read French. Christensen or Ake is the question, potential-wise. Oh, that's an interesting question. Personally, I never quite rated Ake as that highly in terms of potential, just because he is good in multiple positions, but not great at any one position that I've seen. Christensen, on the other hand, certainly has the potential to be a top-class center back. So I'd say in terms of potential, Christensen is ahead of Ake. In terms of usefulness, right now, Ake possibly edges it, just because he could fill in at least two positions in the back three. He could fill in at left wing back as well, and defensive midfield. So that's four of the 11 starting positions where Ake could play. Christensen can play right now one, maybe two. But as far as potential goes, if you can develop Christensen, I think we're set for a long time with a quality center back. The kid, it's funny to see pictures of him now because he seems to have grown like twice the size since the last time we truly saw him. He used to be a skinny kid back in the youth team. Now he's got shoulders wider than Cahill. And we all know how much Cahill loves the gym based on his biceps. So, it's pretty impressive from Christensen. So hopefully he can show that on the pitch as well. Personally, I'm a huge fan of Alonso, says Drew. Do you think this was just a bad game, or is it a sign of things to come? I don't think it's a sign of things to come. I think Alonso was a very good player for us last season, and I would expect him to continue being a very good player for us this season. Considering he hasn't had... considering that he's had to play with young Jeremy Boga in front of him basically all preseason so far. Not that Boga is not a quality player, but he's not as well versed in the tactical setup as a Hazard or a Pedro. I think that certainly has affected Alonso's play. I haven't really seen him link up with Boga at all, and we know that he knows how to link up with Hazard and Pedro. And I expect him to also feature heavily in attack, especially if we play with, say, two strikers or Morata up front, or even Batshuayi. Basically, a big man that he can aim for. He has a very good cross on him. He's excellent at free kicks, and he's I think he's easy to underrate. And probably a lot of it has to do also with Chelsea's supposed big drive to get another left wing back, a starting, top class caliber wing back. Alex Sandro's still out there, supposedly, maybe, possibly. He still hasn't signed his new contract at Juventus, and even though they're saying that they've rejected all our bids, until he signs that contract, it's a possibility. Unlike, say, Benjamin Mendy, who's gone to Manchester City, unlike Danilo, who's mostly a right wing back, but could possibly be a left, who's also gone to Manchester City, and unlike Jeremy Toljan, who's apparently either has gone to Spurs or is about to go to Spurs, which is unfortunate because he's only going to cost him like £3 million, which is a bargain and a half. But yeah, I mean, I'm not saying, Alonso looked weak. Yeah, it wasn't his best game. I'm not sure anybody's disputing that, and I'm certainly not disputing that. We know he can play better. It's, just preseason. It should be noted, I think, that last season, Alonso got better as the season went along, while on the other side, Moses got worse as the season went along. So I don't know if that matters anything. I don't know if that's a repeatable thing or an expected pattern or whatever, but I think if we are to replace a wing back, I don't know, I would say Moses is possibly the one we should be looking at first, but that's just me. I think it might come down to where we can find somebody actually at this point, because right now it doesn't seem like there's really anybody linked with. Yeah, there is Bertrand and Cedric from Southampton, but those are just rumors that have been around forever. Is it gonna happen this time? I mean, I doubt it, but we have less than 6 weeks till the end of the transfer window and less than 3 weeks until the start of the season. So the time is now to make another signing, or at least get to work on a signing, because since Morata was signed, sealed, and delivered, we really haven't really been seriously linked with anybody whatsoever. So that's a bit unfortunate. I'm sure they're not just sitting on their hands over there in the boardroom. So there's got to be something going on. Is Hazard leaving for Madrid? No, I don't think that's happening. I did see that those rumors were resurrected, and I'm not sure how or why or when. But especially if Madrid are about to drop £160 million on Kylian Mbappe, they are not buying Hazard anytime soon. So I think those rumors can be sent back to the trash heap. Would it have been better if Mason Mount was loaned to a championship team like Tammy rather than Vitesse? Asks Binay? I'd say no, just because he is, 18 and some days. He is one of the youngest players we've ever sent on loan. So just because of that, sending him to a less physical league like the Eredivisie is probably best for him at this point, and hopefully he does get lots of playing time, because he has a touch of Fabregas class with his vision and his passing, and if we could develop that in-house, sort of, kind of, on a loan, that would be pretty nice. We need Diego Costa. Yeah, we might, but we don't have him. I think that ship has sailed a long time ago. That was Mr. Cisse's comment. Yeah, we need the money from Diego Costa, if anything else. Courtois was on a bad day, too. Yeah, Thibaut, we've certainly seen him play better than yesterday. Even if we don't blame him for a couple of the goals, which, on another day, I'm sure he saves the first goal because he was moving in the wrong direction and took a wrong step. And then possibly he should have saved the third goal as well. There's not much he could have done about the second goal, but more beyond that, beyond just his saves or lack of saves, was his distribution was absolutely terrible. And that's something he's worked on a lot since 2 seasons ago. And he's talked about that when he missed the first half of that season, when Mourinho got fired. As part of his rehab, he put in extra work on his feet, his footwork, and his distribution, and that really paid off last season. Today we saw a lot of inaccurate mid-range and long-range kicks, some slow distribution to the defenders, and very poor kicking with his off foot, with his right foot. So who knows? I'm not sure what's happening with Courtois there, but that was not as good. When Eduardo looks more comfortable than you with the ball at your feet, you had a bad day. So several Chelsea players had bad days yesterday, and that the fact we only lost 3-2, and the fact that it's just preseason, it makes it all right for now. What about Van Dijk? Virgil van Dijk is a rumor that was resurrected as well, but only briefly. It's one of those times when the reports that we generally consider to be sourced from Chelsea or from Chelsea sources were disagreeing. I believe it was the Telegraph that was saying that Chelsea are considering Van Dijk as one of the 4 players who we're going to try to sign the rest of the summer. And then the Evening Standard said, we can already rule that out. And just based on how the summer's going, I don't think Van Dijk's going anywhere. And I also don't really think we need Virgil van Dijk at this point. And I know Christensen didn't necessarily impress everybody yesterday, but as the 5th choice center back, he should be more than enough. Rudiger's with the team now, so he's training, and we'll see what he's made of. Conte has tried to sign him, or Chelsea at least tried to sign him last summer and possibly the summer before, so this is a bit of a long-term get, even if it doesn't really feel like it. But Rudiger didn't just come out of nowhere. He's certainly been on the Chelsea shortlist for a while, so hopefully he's as good as expected or as advertised. And I simply don't think central defender is really, of the 4 players or 4 positions that we supposedly are going after, I think center back should be just about the lowest at this point. We need a central midfielder first and foremost, unless we're really willing to trust Lewis Baker. But Lewis Baker really hasn't played any central midfield in preseason so far. He's a bit of the Ruben Loftus-Cheek of this summer, where everybody thinks he's a midfielder, but then Conte plays him as a forward. So that's Lewis Baker's preseason so far. So unless we're possibly trusting Mario Pasalic as the 4th midfielder, which would be a pretty bold move, a pretty interesting call as well. But I'm not sure too many people would be very comfortable heading into the season with Conte, Fabregas, a still injured Bakayoko, and Mario Pasalic as the 4 midfielders for a team hoping to defend the Premier League title and challenge in the Champions League. But yeah, stranger things have happened. Bakayoko, when is he joining? The accepted thing was end of August. But then there was a report yesterday, I didn't see it confirmed anywhere. I think it was just one guy on Twitter who goes by the name of Ben Dinnery, who tends to do a lot of injury updates. he seemed to think that Conte and Chelsea were expecting Bakayoko back by the Community Shield, which is, like 2 weeks away or a week and a half away, which would be highly surprising because he hasn't trained with the team at all or anything like that. So maybe he'll be back, maybe not. Maybe he'll be ready for the start of the season, which would be good news for sure. Suddenly we will sign Verratti on deadline day. Hashtag positive, says Vinay. That would be something else, that's for sure. Although, if I were a betting man, I'd say Barcelona have a much better chance. Oh, and Neymar too. Okay, good. Because I was going to say, I think if Verratti goes anywhere, he's going to Barcelona, and Neymar goes in the other direction to PSG. But if we're going to sign both Verratti and Neymar, then there's no problem. Oh, and Mbappe too. Sweet. Oh my god. It's going to be an amazing team. I can't believe Mbappe would be 160 million. That's ridiculous. I know he's good, or he's supposed to be good at 18 or however old he is, but come on, 160 million? Even for Real Madrid, that's just outrageous. I'm saddened that Chelsea... Emmanuel says, I'm saddened that Chelsea let Nathaniel Chalobah leave. Ruben Loftus-Cheek should have been given a chance with Tammy Abraham as well. Wish the team all the best. I think... excuse me. I think Chelsea themselves were a bit saddened that Chalobah chose to leave. I don't think it's necessarily that we sold him or we made him leave. I mean, indirectly or inadvertently, I suppose we did by not playing him more last season. But I think we were definitely counting on Chalobah to be the fourth midfielder for this season. And that's why we were so okay with basically letting Matic go, even though he hasn't left yet. It seems pretty clear that he will be leaving. And I think we were hoping to have Conte, Bakayoko, Fabregas, and Chalobah as our four midfielders. And he's gone to Watford, so good luck to him there. Loftus-Cheek, interesting timing on that, but Conte didn't seem to see Loftus-Cheek as a midfielder, and as a striker or as a forward, he seems not so ideal. He's had good games or whatever, but I think he'll be best served by a loan. They probably should have gotten it a little earlier than now. It seems like we're doing things backwards with Loftus-Cheek, but maybe that'll be the ticket for him. And Tammy needs minutes, and that's the only thing I really like about spending any money on Llorente would be if we did that and that guaranteed more playing time for Tammy Abraham at Swansea. Unless, of course, Swansea then go on sign like Wilfried Boney or something, and then we're back to square one with Tammy. So that's not so cool. Mufti says 160 million is for the potential. The club who get him will have a top striker, maybe best in the world for 10, 15 years. Well, that's certainly, yes. If Mbappe turns out to be as good as everybody seems to think that he will be, then 160 million, especially the way transfer fees are going these days, 160 million will be, peanuts. 5 years from now, 100 million is going to be like the standard price for a player, like 40 million is now, and 20 million was 5-10 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. So, Madrid certainly making a play on potential there. But how many 18-year-olds truly, really follow up with that promise? I mean, some do, obviously, but it seems pretty risky. Seems pretty risky to me. But hey, good luck, more power to them, etc., etc. In a way, we helped them enable that by buying Morata. And I also like that if they buy Mbappe, then hopefully we no longer have to hear about all this Hazard nonsense. So, win, kind of. unless Mbappe turns out to be, like Ronaldo and both Ronaldos combined that good. Original Ronaldo and new Ronaldo. Don't you think that Chelsea needs another attacking creative midfielder, ease the burden on Hazard, and help Morata in the team? Is Emmanuel's question. Well, right now we do because everybody's injured. And yeah, maybe I think we would need somebody who's has a versatile player. I mean, I guess maybe somebody like Lewis Baker who can play midfield and attacking midfield. And I think that's probably why Antonio Candreva's name was linked with these recent stories of 3-4 signings coming in to Chelsea. Candreva since has already denied any of this and saying he's committed to the Inter Milan project, etc., etc. But he's somebody who can be a winger, he can be a central midfielder, he can be an attacking midfielder and be effective at all positions. So maybe somebody like that could be useful to help with Hazard and Pedro and Willian and whoever else might stay, Boga or Charlie Musonda if he ever becomes not injured. Do we stand a chance in bringing in Alexandro? As we mentioned earlier, until Alexandro signs his new contract with Juventus, there's always a chance. I'm telling you, there's a chance. I don't think it's a very good chance, but I've been wrong before. Certainly, Alexandro is a very, very, very good player. And as much as I like Marcos Alonso, Alexandro is better than him in almost every respect, except maybe in the air and maybe on set pieces, which are important things and important features of our play. But it's pros and cons to everything. And with Alexandro, if we were able to get him, the pros would probably outweigh the cons. So, as Manchester City has shown us, spending lots of money on wingbacks is the new thing that we all need to be doing. They've spent, 50, 52, 53 for 2 players each, plus another 30 on Danilo. So it's a good 130 million on 3 wingbacks this summer. So there you go. Spend your money on wingbacks. Invest in wingbacks. If you want to make money in the future, buy lots of wingbacks at cheap rate. What do you think about Alex Telles? Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know how good he is. I remember the name. I remember him being linked with Chelsea a couple of years ago when he was over in Turkey somewhere, I want to say, like Galatasaray or Fenerbahce. But, yeah, it's a name that's kind of rumbling in the background. So, I don't know. Sorry. Yeah, I don't know much about the other Alex. I know some about Alexandro, and I'd like Alexandro. I'm a firm believer of, if you're going to spend money, we should spend money on the best available, and Alexandro is the best available. So if we have to drop 70 million on him and break our transfer record for the second time this summer, so be it. Let's do it. But it's unclear to me that Sandro actually wants to leave Juventus, and I think he's just waiting to sign his contract, unfortunately. If the option was there, Nelson Semedo or Alexandro? Well, they play 2 different sides, right? Semedo is right and Sandro's left. I'd say I'd take Sandro over just about any wing back on any side at this point. A lot of that is by reputation. I don't really claim to know every wing back ever out there. And unfortunately, I don't even play enough Football Manager these days to know all the players out there. But of players at top teams, play wing backs at top teams. Alexandro is easily the player I'd like the most to be on Chelsea or at Chelsea. But I'm not entirely confident that would happen. Gary Cahill should be on the bench. We better give David Luiz the armband. Cahill not fit to be the Chelsea captain. He makes big mistakes. Yeah, I mean everybody makes mistakes. As far as the armband, so Conte confirmed that Gary Cahill will be the captain, the new Chelsea captain. He is the first non-John Terry captain of Chelsea since 2004. And we're talking like, officially named captain. So Mourinho named John Terry the club captain in 2004 or 2003. I could be wrong. I think it was 2003. Oh no, 2004. 2004 when Mourinho came, he named Terry captain when Marcel Desailly left. So for the first time since 2004, Chelsea have an official club captain who is not John Terry. But as Conte says, Gary Cahill, he's been here forever now, seemingly, since, what was it now, 2012, January 2012. He's played a ton of games. He's a proven winner. He's won all the trophies or whatever. And most importantly, just because you're a club captain, it really doesn't mean much as far as your playing time goes. As Terry was captain last summer or last season, and he barely played. So, it's whoever's on the pitch. Doesn't necessarily has any what's the word I'm looking for? Whoever has the armband officially won't necessarily be on the pitch. And if Cahill's not there, then we have Azpilicueta, we have David Luiz, we have Fabregas, we have who else? Conte mentioned Courtois, Hazard, who sometimes captains Belgium, etc., etc. Loic Remy, he was captain last against Arsenal for a few minutes, so, leaders all over the pitch. It's Ranieri who appointed Terry captain. I don't think that's actually true. They're Robin Dijon, but I could be wrong. And Terry's worn the armband before. I think Mourinho made him official Chelsea captain, but I think it's the manager actually coming out and giving you that armband. I think that only actually happened in 2004. But again, I'm happy to be proven wrong. Guarantee is the word I'm looking for, says Mufti, and you are correct. You are guaranteed. Where were you 2 minutes ago? These comments need to load faster. If Matic is left unsold at the transfer window, what would be his mindset, good or bad? Well, I don't know. Matic is such a weird case because he doesn't ever seem to give any media appearances, any comments to the media, so nobody ever really knows what he's thinking. Like last summer, we kind of assumed that he wanted to leave just because of his on-pitch mannerisms and stuff like that. And then he decided to stay, and supposedly that was because Conte talked some sense into him, told him that he's going to be a key player for the season ahead, which was true, and he was. And now we seem to be in the opposite situation where either Conte has told him, thanks for the season now, except he didn't do it in a text or whatever, and Matic hasn't made it public, unlike Costa, or Matic now really wants to leave. It's impossible to tell what he's actually wanting. But the fact that we're making him train separately and all that, basically has sealed his fate. And I'm pretty sure we're going to find a deal for him. It probably won't be for 50 million, which seems highly optimistic. It probably won't even be for 40 million. I mean, he's almost 29 years old, if not already 29 years old. It's a lot of money to be paying for a 29-year-old midfielder. He's good, and he certainly would increase the quality of the midfield a significant amount. I mean, imagine a midfield four options of Conte, Bakayoko, Matic, and Fabregas. I mean, that's strength and power and skill and whatever else you need and whatever combination. Or really, it would be Conte playing every game and then the rest of them rotating around as needed. But I can't really see Matic staying. Just like I can't see Costa staying. Even though Matic really hasn't said anything in public about his situation or his conundrum. And all that said, I hope we don't sell him to Manchester United just because I don't want to play against him, because that tends to not be a good situation. So even if we have to take fewer lower transfer fee, let's get Matic out of the league if he's not staying. Send him to Juve and grease the wheels for Alexandro transfer, or send him to Inter and whatever, grease the wheels of a Kandreva transfer or whatever needs to happen. Matic could be a bargaining chip in the weeks ahead. I do not like our front line, says Michael. Morata is not enough and he can't attack maximally. I'm not sure what that means. We really need another striker that can help Morata add more force in our front. Well, I think if we need force in our front, that's Batshuayi for you. We haven't really seen too much of Morata. We saw him for 20 minutes today, and he looked pretty good for the 20 minutes. I think Conte said, he needs time to adapt to the system, etc., etc. But he plays bigger than he looks, and he looks pretty big, mighty big already. And he's got really nice, really good feet, good speed. Everything I've seen from Morata and so far, it has impressed me. Obviously, I'm probably biased or predisposed to wanting him to work out at Chelsea for 58 million or whatever. I think it's bringing up the specter of bad news, but a lot of people, a lot of fans did that for Torres for a long time. We all wanted Fernando Torres to work out at Chelsea, and then slowly but surely, one by one, the support kind of dropped off to more realistic levels. Can measure it with his performances. So hopefully we don't end up there with Morata, and he lives up to expectation and all that. Unlike Torres, he's not coming off knee surgeries and all that stuff, and he's not on the backward slope of his career, hopefully. At 24, he should be still improving and getting better and working with the coach who's wanted to work with him for several years now. So that's my hope for Morata. And it's kind of similar to Batshuayi. He's been around for a year now. He's worked a lot with Conte. So at this point, if he still doesn't fit the scheme or the system at Chelsea or the system for Conte, then it's probably not going to happen for him for Conte, which would be unfortunate. But hopefully that's not the case. And I think Batshuayi's played really well this preseason. Like the rest of the team, he had his a few struggles yesterday, several bad decisions, but so did Willian. So it happens. It happens to all of them. Morata does not fit our style of playing. He's too relaxed. Is he? I don't know. It seems pretty early to condemn him like that, but maybe he is. Maybe he is. I'd like to know the list of players on our minds to sign before the summer transfer is over. So the reports that were saying that Chelsea are looking to play or sign 3 or 4 more players, the players named were Fernando Llorente as striker, Virgil van Dijk possibly as center back, but then other reports disputed that. Antonio Candreva as the midfield/winger. But then Candreva himself said he doesn't really want to leave Inter. And then Alexandro as the wingback. So I'm not necessarily certain any of those options are really that realistic. Certainly, if we throw enough money at Swansea City, they'll give us Llorente. And there were some, silly numbers being thrown out already, like 30 million, which, I mean, I hope that doesn't happen. Because, it's one thing to pay 160 million for Mbappe, but paying 30 million for Llorente, and somebody needs to get fired. So, hopefully that doesn't happen. But none of these names are really truly that inspiring or that right away make an obvious thing to get excited about, either because it's just Llorente or because we've been trying at Alexandro for a month, if not a month and a half, and not really getting anywhere. So, yeah. We have to sign Sanchez and Chamberlain and Verratti. Yeah. Yes. If we could sign Marco Verratti, that would be fantastic. I don't think that's happening. Alexis and the Ox. Yeah, it's been a little quiet last few days. And the situations for both of them seem pretty similar. Neither player is wanting to sign their current deals on offer from Arsenal. Alexis supposedly really wants to leave, but he might not be able to leave. And the Ox might want to leave, but he's also really not being let to leave. So that's Arsenal for you, right? They seem pretty serious about, at least for now, about truly following through on their silly threats to not play or not sell the players and just play him through their final year of the contract and let him leave for free, which would be pretty stupid. But that's Arsenal for you. I still think they'll change their mind, or they'll convince them to stay, or whatever. Both players, certainly Alexis is pretty great, and I don't think we necessarily need a winger or an inside forward upgrade at the moment. But if we can get Alexis, then now is the time. It's probably the last time really that we should be buying Alexis. So this is our last chance. The Ox, I think, would be a very smart signing, depending on price. If they're charging 50 million, well, that's not so smart. But if they're charging something less than that, the Ox is somebody who we could use as a rotation again, much like Candreva, where he is versatile and hardworking, all that good stuff. He's young, and another thing that Ox has going for him is that he's homegrown, so helps us basically add him to the squad for free. Joshua Madrid says, "Why are you still awake?" Mr. Madrid, with the lovely last name, is a West Coaster like me. I'm still awake because this is the hours I keep. It's been a long day, actually, with Chelsea playing at like 4:30 a.m. local time, and now it's 2:13 a.m., so going on 24 hours. We got this, no worries. Actually, 2:13. We've been here for, 58 minutes? It seems like about the limit of anybody's attention span to this nonsense. I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. So unfortunate loss for Chelsea today. Really bad 30 minutes, then slightly better and improving last 60 minutes. Couldn't quite bring it back from 3 goals down. So it's 3-2 is the final score. Goals from Marcus Alonso and Michy Batshuayi. As far as the transfer rumors go, big news really since Morata signed is that there hasn't been much news at all. Manchester City are signing everybody who's a wingback is going to Manchester City and not Chelsea. So yeah, that's where we are. There's supposedly plenty of intent from the board and the club to continue making signings, and they're trying to put out there that they're expecting or wanting to sign 3 or 4 more players the rest of the summer. There are 2.5 weeks to go till the season starts, so they better get on that. Of course, we'll probably leave it till transfer deadline day, so at least that won't be boring. So anyway, I think that's going to do it for me for today. We'll be back after the Inter game on Saturday, which is another early one, regardless of where you are, unless you're local in Singapore, in which case it's at night. But I think it's at 12:30 or 12:40 London time, which is early if you're in America. So that's it. We'll talk to you then. And see if I can find the end button. Thanks for watching if you watched any of this or all of this. And thanks for all the comments. And we'll chat to you soon. Thanks. Bye.